Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Geraghty.
And welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today. All of it brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Right now, Three Martini Lunch listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/martini. Much more on that a little bit later in the podcast. And Jim, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is our good martini. I'm liking this trend. Let's just hope it continues through the first couple weeks in November. Daily Caller with the story here. New York Democratic congressional candidate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has not been elected into any political office yet, and some Democratic lawmakers are already voicing concerns over her divisive rhetoric. Ocasio-Cortez, a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist, rose to fame after her shocking defeat over Congressman Joseph Crowley in the primary. Shortly after that primary, she tweeted out about Crowley apparently not making good on concession calls and supposedly mounting a third-party challenge. He instantly fired back, disputing Ocasio-Cortez's claim and calling for party unity. Alexandria, the race is over and Democrats need to come together. I've made my support for you clear and the fact that I'm not running. A host of Democrats have now expressed their irritation with the socialist darling in the week following the tweet, even warning her to tone down her rhetoric. Democratic Congressman Bill Pascrell of New Jersey came to Crowley's defense, telling The Hill she is carrying on and she ain't going to make friends that way. Joe conceded, wished her well, and said he would support her. So she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. The New Jersey congressman continued, she's not asking my advice, but I would do it differently rather than make enemies of people. Missouri Democrat Lacey Clay also expressed frustration, explaining, once an election is over and you win, why are you still angry? I think it's a lack of maturity on her part and a lack of political acumen for her to be that petty. We as Democrats better figure out who the real enemy is, and it's not each other. And my favorite, Democratic Congressman Elsie Hastings of Florida advised Ocasio-Cortez to build relationships with members of her party in order to be productive when she gets to Washington. Quote, meteors fizz out. What she will learn in the institution is that it's glacial to begin with, and therefore no matter how far you rise, that's just how far you will ultimately get your comeuppance. You come up here and you're going to be buddy-buddy with all the folks, or you're going to make them do certain things. Ain't happening, okay? Jim, this didn't even take a month.
You know, Greg, I'm reminded of Bobby Rush, who was running for U.S. House up against Barack Obama, this young state legislator, Barack Obama. And Obama was challenging him in a Democratic primary. It was one of the few races of Barack Obama's life that he lost. And at one point in one of their debates, after Obama had made his argument for himself and kind of argued that Rush had become part of the old establishment and his time had passed, et cetera, Rush just turned to the crowd and said, "But what's he done? I mean, really, what's he done?" And Obama lost that primary, and there was kind of the sense of, who the heck are you? And why are you coming along acting like you own the place and acting like you know how to fix everything and you're this genius? I'm not a huge fan of the scoffing at Ocasio-Cortez for bartending not too long ago. Bartending is a fine profession as far as I'm concerned. But it does kind of point out, she's got this economics degree, but, did she ever actually use it professionally? Did she, and if not, why not? This is, presumably her area of expertise. When she runs around saying that unemployment is so low because everyone has two jobs, people start doubting the depth of that economic knowledge. And I just kind of remember thinking about, as the Ocasio hype has been building, and she's instantly become one of the most covered figures on both the left and the right. And the media just seems to be very focused on everything she says. She kind of reminds me of, Greg.
Who's that?
Julian Castro, the former mayor of San Antonio, who gave the keynote address at the Democratic Convention in Charlotte back in 2012. I remember when they picked this guy, they was like, who is this guy? And it is worth noting, by that point, at least he had been mayor of San Antonio for quite a few years. I wrote a bunch of pieces for National Review kind of looking at, in that context of that Bobby Rush question, what's he done? No, really, what's he's done? Well, he'd been mayor. In terms of city power and how the city political and government is organized, it wasn't a particularly powerful office. The city council had a lot more power. You look at how things had changed in the city. The economy had done pretty well. Fracking was a big part of that. He had not loused that up. I guess that's one of the nice things you could say about him. Crime had been started out bad when he started, not gotten any better. The schools had been bad, and they really hadn't improved any on his watch. So I kind of looked as like, a lot of people said, Julian Castro could be the Latino Obama. And I said, in the sense that he's charismatic and talks a good game and everybody likes him, but he doesn't actually accomplish much? Yeah, that really is a good parallel there. Ocasio seems to be almost in this same category. That it's the charisma, it's the appearance, it's what she represents, much less than what she's done with her life. And admittedly, look, it's tough to do exceptional things with your life by the time you're 28. But it's not surprising you'd see some House Democrats who've been there for a while kind of asking, who the heck is this woman? And why is she suddenly the flavor of the month? And why is suddenly everyone, bending over backwards and singing her praises? Because she hasn't done anything yet. So perhaps it's just an indicator of just the nature of politics. The faster you rise, the faster you will fall. Or I think at the very least, the more scrutiny that is put upon you. My other thought is that people in this young woman recognize a lot of people they've met in politics over the years. People who are very enthusiastic, people who are very passionate about these things, but who really haven't taken the time to do the homework because the homework is boring. The homework is complicated. The homework takes time. That's what makes you understand when, we talk about her comments about Israel and how they kind of indicated a inch-deep knowledge of Middle East issues. Look, this stuff takes time to get to know. And you're going to get a lot of questions thrown at you as a congressional candidate. You're going to get a lot of issues thrown at you in Congress. And okay, it's fine. People are going to have their stumbles. But this is why you don't turn 28-year-olds into the instant face of the party. And you kind of need to, keep that hype in check. And in this case, it has utterly failed. And I think she's kind of being exposed as someone who, you and I think is, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in terms of her political beliefs. But, she might be a very nice woman, but she hasn't been ready. She has not spent her life preparing to do this. And it really is starting to show.
Jim, I think we missed the fine print when DNC Chairman Tom Perez called her the future of the party. I think he just meant for the first couple weeks in July.
Correct. She has for a short period, indeed, represented the future. Is this a way of saying that the party doesn't have much of a future, Greg?
Maybe. She did get him to track her lunacy on trying to abolish ICE. So well done, Alexandria. Well done indeed. All right. Talking about insanity, let's move on to our bad martini now. Jim, tell me if you've heard anything like this before. This is courtesy of Haaretz. A regional politician in Austria defended a plan to limit access to kosher meat, conditioning its sale on permits that would be individually issued to observant Jews. The Wiener Zeitung Daily reported Tuesday about the draft decree in the state of Lower Austria, one of 9 states that make up the Federal Republic of Austria. Gottfried Waldhausel, the cabinet minister in the state government of Lower Austria, who is in charge of animal welfare and several other portfolios, defended the plan as necessary, quote, from an animal welfare point of view. Oscar Deutsch, the president of the Jewish community in Vienna, warned that in practice the plan would require compiling a list of Jews, which he called, quote, like a negative Aryan clause, referencing racist laws passed by Nazi Germany and implemented in Austria after its merger with Germany in 1938. The American Jewish Committee's Berlin office also referenced Nazi decrees in opposing the plan. Jewish and Muslim religious laws require animals to be conscious when their throats are cut for the meat to be kosher or halal. The report did not say whether the draft decree also extends to halal. In other words, whether Muslims would have to identify themselves. So, Jim, a guy with a name like Gottfried Waldhausel is calling for Jews to identify themselves and be put on a list. What could go wrong here?
I'm gonna go watch Sound of Music again, Greg, because I'm thinking about how there were some Austrians like Captain von Trapp who did not like the Nazis coming into town, and there were some who didn't have that much of a problem with it. Greg, there are 2 possible explanations for this kind of proposal, and they're both bad. The first is just flat out ignorance on the part of this official of what it looks like when the Austrian government starts compiling a list of Jews. Or the second, which is perhaps even worse, is they do know exactly what this looks like, and that this is a not so subtle dog whistle to indicate to all of the far-right groups and hate groups and groups like that, well, we're on your side, guys. Don't worry, fellas. We're working on this. I have a very hard time believing that any type of meat preparation practice that has been in practice for centuries, millennia even, is really going to be that much of a problem. And the idea that this is where, the Austrian government, really, you guys solved everything else in the Austrian government, right? No other problems with, I know you tightened the borders on migrants and stuff like that. No risks of terrorism, no economy issues, no energy issues. I understand the birth rate's pretty low in Central Europe. You guys don't want to work on any of that stuff? No? You just want to Just worried about meat preparation, huh? Okay, got it. Listen, as I think my friend Cam put this very well, as someone who is pro-meat and pro-freedom, I hate this in every way possible.
That's an excellent way to put it. We should point out that this guy, the animal welfare official from Lower Austria, so he's basically the equivalent of a state government official in Austria, is the state's only cabinet minister from the Populist Freedom Party, which was created by a former Nazi SS soldier in the 50s and opposes immigration from Muslim countries. So this guy's clearly on the fringe in Austria, but it's always good to stomp on the throat of this sort of thing before there ends up being anybody else allied with this sort of idea.
Greg, as the wise Professor Henry Jones Jr. put it, Nazis. I hate these guys.
That's right. Absolutely right. So, do you need a new animal welfare official if you work in Lower Austria? If you do...
If you're Austria, take a look at that. Give some serious consideration to that.
I think ZipRecruiter could help you out here, folks, unless it's an elected position. But if not, ZipRecruiter is definitely the way to go. Hiring is challenging, but there's one place you can go where hiring is simple, fast, and smart. A place where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. That place is ZipRecruiter.com/martini.
ZipRecruiter sends your job to more than 100 of the web's leading job boards, but they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience, and it invites them to apply to your job. As the applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one and spotlights the top candidates, so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site by the first day.
With results like that, it's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is the highest-rated hiring site in America. It's number one. And right now, our listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/martini. That's ZipRecruiter.com/MARTINI. ZipRecruiter.com/martini. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. All right, Jim, it's the story that won't go away, in part because the president won't let it go away. We talked on Monday and Tuesday about the president seemed to think the conclusions of the intelligence community about Russian meddling in 2016 and Vladimir Putin's denial, well, you got one on one hand, one on the other. What are you going to do? Then he tried to clarify it yesterday, and I'm not sure that it helped. In fact, I'm pretty sure it didn't help. First of all, he said that he did trust the conclusions of the intel community.
I have full faith and support for America's great intelligence agencies, always had. And I have felt very strongly that while Russia's actions had no impact at all on the outcome of the election, let me be totally clear in saying that, and I've said this many times, I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there.
You think John Bolton or whoever else put those last two sentences in there? Could be somebody else, too. There's a lot of people out there. Then the president...
Greg, I'm going to say, no, that's all Trump right there. I mean, like, the whole point of this is, look, I believe the intelligence community that it was Russia. Never mind that I said the exact opposite 24 hours earlier. Never mind that I ranted about Hillary's missing emails and why hasn't the FBI done that. I went on a long, meandering series of comments, and at no point in that lengthy diatribe did I give any sense that I had any faith in the intelligence communities. And you could argue, when put directly, about whether I believe Dan Coates, the director of national intelligence, and all of the other folks who work in the intelligence community, CIA, FBI, NSA, all of those groups, or Vladimir Putin, I pointed out that Vladimir Putin had a strong and powerful denial. By the way, I strong and powerful are not necessarily synonyms for plausible. I would. But you can be very emphatic, I think is the word he was looking for there. You can pound the table, a lot. That doesn't necessarily mean the denial was particularly plausible. And Trump didn't, the whole point of that, right? There's a lot of talk about Trump's national security. Advisors met yesterday morning. There was obviously a great deal of concern. Look, people were telling Axios at the White House this was not the plan. The plan was for Trump to go to this summit was supposed to put some of these issues to bed. That Trump was supposed to take a much tougher line with Putin. That he was, in those comments, as I was saying yesterday, if he had taken just one issue, right? Using nerve gas in the UK, that's a no-no. Okay, if Trump had just made an issue of that, he might have done himself some good. You can pick the shooting down of the Malaysian Airlines. You can pick Crimea. You can pick harassing Ukraine. Go down the list. There's no shortage of buzzing our naval ships, but violating our airspace. Find something that Russia has done and complain about it, and you do a little bit to undermine the narrative that Trump is a puppet of Putin. But he didn't do that. So then he comes back with this effort to walk it back. And we can all tell that this is something that his staff is forcing on him. We know he doesn't want to say this. Trump never wants to admit he's ever made a mistake. And then he comes up with this, I misspoke. I said couldn't when I meant could. No, Mr. President. He spoke for a great length. There's no doubt about this. I suppose as someone who wants a united front against Russian aggression, I should be glad that he's doing this. But this is so transparently insincere. I'm not sure how much good it does. And then that little ad lib at the end, it could be other people. There are a lot of people. At that point, strictly, no, you don't. If you're saying that, Mr. President, you don't believe what the intelligence community has said. It's one or the other. It's not this. I kind of believe him. I kind of don't. We could be very wrong. I'm going to make a prediction, Greg. I've been wrong before. I could be wrong again. But we all know Trump doesn't like being restricted. He doesn't like the idea of having a leash on him or having any kind of limitation or something. My suspicion is, Greg, at some point in the not too distant future, he walks back the walk back. He will say something else that's along the lines of, for all we know, it could be that 400-pound guy in his basement or something. My suspicion is that, look, it's worth noting, like people point out accurately, yes, the Trump administration has been tough on Russia. The sanctions, the arms sales to Ukraine and lethal aid, something the Obama administration refused to do. Nikki Haley kicking tail and taking names at the UN. This is a tough administration. It's not a tough president. It's not, these are two different things. I think if you look at Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, John Bolton, Mad Dog Mattis, pretty much the entire national security team, they're all pretty much Russia hawks. There's really not much doubt that any of those people have a naive or all too trusting view of Vladimir Putin or anything like that. The problem is the president. The president has these perspectives, and that's what's fueling this major problem for the administration going forward.
You mentioned the misspeaking, Jim. Just wanted to play those quick clips. Here's what the president said after talking about the DNC server not being handed over to the FBI. Here's what he said in Finland on Monday.
With that being said, all I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be, but I really do want to see the server. But I have confidence in both parties.
Here's Tuesday.
Now, I have to say, I came back and I said, what is going on? What's the big deal? So I got a transcript. I reviewed it. I actually went out and reviewed a clip of an answer that I gave. And I realized that there is a need for some clarification. It should have been obvious. I thought it would be obvious, but I would like to clarify just in case it wasn't. In a key sentence in my remarks, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't or why it wouldn't be Russia.
Jim, you can never say for sure if it was a misspeaking, but given the context, it certainly makes you wonder, as you said a moment ago.
Yeah, I mean, within a word or two, he's off going on about Hillary Clinton's emails again. So in his mentality or his explanation here, this one sentence was his one statement of holding Russia accountable. He just happened to botch it in a way that suggested the opposite, and everything else he said should just be hand-waved away. The dog won't hunt, as they say in the South. Look, we'll see what happens. Every day is a new day, and it's possible that tomorrow morning Trump wakes up and we get 14 tweets, ripping into Putin for all the things the Russian government has done. But he hasn't, and I just think one of the things that's very revealing is, he'll rip into Justin Trudeau. He'll stab Theresa May in the back in a newspaper interview right before the meeting. Probably a really good example of this is how tough he was on Angela Merkel about the Russian gas pipeline. On the German part of the deal, he goes, has the meeting with Putin. He comes out saying, "Well, I understand where they're coming from on this, so I wish him luck." Right? So he's tough with Merkel on a Russia-Germany deal, but he's not tough with Putin on a Russia-Germany deal. And I think that just indicates that for whatever reason, blind spot, psychological issue. I know all the Dems like to speculate there's some sort of blackmail or something like that. I'll believe that when I see it. I just think Trump ad libs and improvises as he goes along, and for whatever reason, he just doesn't see any reason to be all that upset with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, the old saying goes, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. I'm not sure the clarification followed that advice very well. So we'll see what statements come from here on out. I'm sure there will be some. Jim, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And don't forget to visit our friends at ZipRecruiter for free right now. You can post jobs at ZipRecruiter.com/martini. Tune in again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.